First of all, I want, even before I continue, to congratulate you for the great work. It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, it does.
And for our viewing audience, welcome to this very, very interesting and very, very profitable talk show.
Yeah.
I am Bishop Dr. Jim Maina.
Yeah.
Many people could have known me as a pastor, but a very interested person when it comes to mental health. In fact, I had to go and study, though I've done theology. I also did some training on the area of Christian counseling to the PhD level.
Yeah.
And today, just to have this conversation really reassures me there is hope, because mental health is such a silent pandemic, as you call it.
Yeah.
And I'm honored to be part of the set. Thank you.
Thank you, Frida. Thank you, Bishop. I'm Gabriel, counseling psychologist from Mwea Serenity Counseling and Treatment Center, where I'm the director. With my team, we make sure that we support our people, our community. Those guys who have been affected by drug addiction.
Yeah.
And also, apart from drug addiction,
Yeah.
just like the way Frida has said,
Yeah.
mental health sometimes might be caused by other issues, apart from addiction. And therefore, we are looking at a conversation that will encourage us to support our people understand that there's a correlation between substance use and mental health diseases, disorders, or conditions.
Yes.
And of course, the way forward on how to handle, address, and of course, treat. Because, as you have said, it is possible to recover from SUDs, the substance use disorders. With the right plan, with the right partnership, it is possible.
Yeah.
So thank you, Frida, for this platform.
You're much welcome.
Asante.
So, my viewer, you've heard, my panelists are ready for this discussion. So let us know where you're watching us from, and feel free to, give your contribution and ask questions. And if you're watching us and you need help, feel free to reach out on the numbers on our screens. So I think we'll get right into it. Bishop, there's a question I ask all my panelists, because I run a program called Healing is Possible.
Yeah.
And it's a support group for people suffering from mental illnesses. So the first question I ask every panelist is, do you think healing from mental illnesses is possible?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that also, when you invited me, we talked about also that I should not be shy of bringing in the spiritual dimension.
Yes.
I'm a believer in God, and I believe God created all of us, no matter our faith convictions. And I believe that God who can heal cancer, because he healed me of cancer 45 years ago, can heal also the mind, can heal every part, including our souls. So I don't want to gamble with that. It's possible to be healed, but that would be relative. Might be some people healing would mean the ability to function in a healthy way. They may not necessarily mean total elimination of the condition, but might be to manage. But healing is a possibility.
Wow.
Complete.
Yeah, Dr. Gabriel, for the medical, medical world, there are so many conversations about curative treatments and, treatments that manage disease, like Bishop has talked about.
Right.
So I'm asking you this question with an understanding that you're in the medical field.
Right.
So do you think healing from mental illnesses is possible?
Very true. It is very possible. First of all, the model that we normally use, especially on admission, we must do what we call screening, because you cannot treat what you don't know.
Absolutely.
And we must make sure that you use the required tools that are maybe certified by necessary bodies. So the basic tool that we are using currently, which is certified worldwide, is the DSM-5, whereby all the substance use disorders, when you receive a client or a patient, you screen, and you have to score as per the severity, because you have mild, moderate, and severe case. Whereby, just as Bishop has indicated, if the condition is mild, for instance, depression, there are those issues that we call psychosocial issues that might not need maybe medical approach. So we shall involve counselors and social workers. But basically, the severe cases, for example, for depression, you have to start with the medical model, especially for the first 1 month. Because the model that works so well, combining what Bishop is saying, is the biopsychosocial model.
Yes.
So we start with the biological part, the bio.
Yes.
Then the psychologists and the counselors, we go now to the psychological part.
Yes.
The mind and the brain.
Yes.
Because the brain is our engine.
Yeah.
Then the social part, we have to involve the family,
yes,
the church,
yes,
and all the stakeholders from the society to support this person become someone.
Thank you for
productive.
that elaborate answer.
Exactly.
I think that's quite elaborate. Yeah, so I want us to maybe first demystify what addiction is. When we talk about substance use disorders, I know there are drugs, there are substances, there are behaviors people get addicted to. So maybe to begin with you, Daktari, what are substance use disorders? What is this you're talking about?
Thank you. Go to the DSM-5, that is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders.
Yes.
Addiction is a brain disorder. It's a brain disease.
Okay.
Because we are talking about a chemical that is coming to this body.
Yeah.
And it's affecting the function of the brain.
Yeah.
And any chemical, be it from food,
it
must alter the functions of the body, positively or negatively.
Yeah.
So basically, addiction is a compulsive way of response to a certain substance or behavior.
Yeah.
When we talk about the behavior, we're talking about parts of our brain affect us, maybe to think, make decisions, and be irrational or rational.
Yeah.
So all the negatives about our behaviors, about how we respond to the environment, and environment we're talking about the people, is determined by how our brain parts are affected. And maybe technically there's something we call hippocampus. A part of the brain that we call hippocampus that helps us make decisions, differentiate a human being from an animal.
Yeah.
Because there's that kind of common sense that makes us behave or respond to our environment or maybe people around us like human beings.
Okay.
The disadvantage is that some of these drugs destroy such sacred parts that were given by God for free to make us become or behave like human beings. And that's how sometimes when someone maybe takes a drug like marijuana, you just wonder about the behavior that person can engage in.
Yeah.
Like even committing suicide, maybe killing someone,
or
maybe commit a certain crime that you can't imagine.
Yeah.
And therefore, when we are talking, it is possible because when someone becomes aware and is assessed early, it is very important that the person can be put under some treatment.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing from what you're saying, Dr. is that one can get addicted to anything that alters brain function and chemistry.
Exactly.
And that might be a drug, like marijuana, as you say, or a behavior. Maybe some behaviors like maybe things like watching pornography.
Right.
Or shopping. I've seen shopping addiction somewhere in my notes in school. I've not encountered such a case, but I've seen some of those.
Very true.
Yeah.
I think you have brought in a very important point.
Yes.
Pornography is not a drug.
Yeah.
And that's why in the psychological world, as psychologists, we do differentiate or categorize these addictions.
Yes.
Those addictions that are not chemical caused, they are called non-chemical addictions.
Okay.
E.g., betting.
Betting.
Pornography.
Yes.
And sometimes impulsive behavior like spending money without a plan, for instance.
Yeah.
So if you become obsessed with some behaviors, and even if that behavior is not chemical based, it becomes a brain disorder.
Wow.
It disorganizes you.
Okay.
And you'll need a particular treatment plan, just the same way a drug-related addiction case requires.
Yes.
So we need to help our people understand that there are those behaviors that are caused by non-chemical behaviors or manners, and yet people are not aware that they can lead to mental disorders.
Yeah.
And that's why people stigmatize those guys who are, addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
Like, they're sometimes even calling that they're bewitched. And with that kind of understanding, sometimes we miss that point of holistic view of handling mental disorders.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bishop, I think from what you shared, there is an understanding about addiction. I don't know if it's faced out that addiction is a moral issue, and then there's that bit where he said that addiction, some people who are addicted are bewitched. Maybe, I don't know, from your understanding of, mental health and mental illness in general, maybe you could help us understand the bit where we have to put a balance between labeling people as having a moral issue because they're addicted or having a spiritual issue. Maybe you could help us with that.
First of all, I want to thank my fellow panelists for such an exhaustive way of looking at addiction and bringing the two aspects of chemical and non-chemical. And also reminding us that if you see somebody who is addicted to drug, you're not better than him if you're addicted to gambling and whatever. Now, to answer your question, one of the things that I believe we seek to achieve today is to take away the stigma. And I want to bring the church here. I'm coming from the church. We can't help people that we judge at the same time. And I know there are people who are over spiritual that will say everything is from the devil. And many times, until you are affected, might be directly or indirectly, you can judge people. Like I'm coming from my family, where my own father loved God, was a moral person, if you use all those terms. But he died of depression. Currently, I have a brother who is going through rehabilitation, and I know in his heart he loves to be. So sometimes we may go against medical and say there's genetic predisposition, but I also believe that the devil will take advantage of choices and habits. But I believe, for me, I would not want to look at it. If our commitment is to help people, I don't want to look at it as if somebody is taking beer, first of all, as if they're immoral. Might be there's a vacuum. They're trying to fulfill a need, but getting the wrong solutions. And also, there's this issue of somebody bewitched. We will not rule out the spirituality because the devil still is there and he would want to destroy lives. So he can put a bait on somebody abusing drugs and finally destroy you. So I think we need to look at it in a holistic way, but at the back of our mind, no matter how I got there, there should be a commitment to restore me to the normal functionality as a human being.
Wow. I think I agree with you because one of my mentors keeps telling me, as long as we can get a solution, then the cause shouldn't make us argue.
It's true. I agree that 100%.
So as long as we know what to do to help this person, then we shouldn't debate about the cause. So maybe just to get back to you, Bishop, I don't know why we are seeing an increase in the number of cases of, mental illnesses and substance use disorders in our country, and even globally. There's been an increasing prevalence, about, around these issues. So what has changed? What is different from, the past? Is it that our generation has it harder than maybe your generation had? Is it a parental issue? Maybe help us understand that.
Thank you. That's very important. Dr. said we can't fix what we don't know. Both leveraging on statistics and also personally being a person who is dealing with people every day, it's true that mental health and mental wellness is a topic that should be really looked at. Because it's, in fact, last few years, when we dealt with the COVID pandemic, I told people there was another more dangerous than COVID, and that is mental issues. Why do we see an increase? First of all, I don't think there's a lot of increase. What I think is coming to bear is now there's a lot of awareness. People are becoming aware there's something called mental sickness. You can be mentally, you can have a mental issue. We used to think sickness is cancer, diabetes, but now we are realizing even these cancers are sometimes they emanate from our mental faculties. Number two, I think comparing generations, and I don't know whether I would say my generation because I don't think there's a big difference. We used to have a very strong social support when family worked.
Yeah, yeah.
Today, things like family circles have been really compromised.
Yeah.
So our young people will grow without the counsel of their father.
Yeah.
The gift of presence,
Yes.
where my son would be my friend and he can escalate issues to me.
Wow.
Number 3, as it were, we are living in a very complex world that is really generating a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And stress, of course, is a breeding ground
Yeah.
for some of these particular issues.
Yeah.
So I also think people, now being a pastor, because I don't want to be relevant in this talk, also have really like forsaken God.
Right.
And the role he prays for us to have peace and to have functional minds and mental wellness.
Yeah.
So I think all this comes together, and also what now we define as fun.
Yeah.
The young generation, mostly in the universities,
Yeah.
for them to have fun, they think they need to go out on the weekend, and they start very innocently with some spirit.
Yeah.
Before they know it, they are hooked up.
Yeah.
And Dr. Ali can even do that better than me. And eventually we see this has contributed to the increased numbers of mental issues in our nation and in the world indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Maybe Dr. Ali, are you, now that you've been practicing and you're dealing with this people, I'm avoiding the word patient, because that's what I'm used to. Maybe I can use the word client.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe now you're dealing with clients
Yes.
on a daily basis.
Right.
And you may be better situated to tell us, are you seeing more cases now? And as Bishop has said, maybe it's because of the awareness, people are becoming more aware. Are you seeing more cases now than you used to maybe in the past? And why do you think that's the case?
Thank you. The cases are increasing, and when you look at the statistics from NACADA,
Yes.
This availability of these liquors or illicit brews or illicit drugs for that matter, legal or illegal, we have a lot of unregulated way of handling, especially on the effects, low levels of awareness.
Yes.
And by so saying, it is factual that, allow me to use the word cartels, especially on the side of the illicit drugs like marijuana. They have taken advantage of low level of awareness, especially for our youths. By lying to them that this drug will support you, especially the students, to pass maybe exams. And before they realize, they already been hooked. And because you said addiction is a brain disorder, for that matter, or a disease, and it affects the way brain works, this person becomes dependent, and therefore becomes a crisis. And when my panelist pastors talked about the challenges the families are facing, the parent is not aware, especially on the effects. The world has become like a global village. Look at the issues of technology. These guys are Googling a lot, the youth, and they know a lot. But they are looking, just as Bishop said, right answers from the wrong sources, especially the internet. When you look at America, when I was doing some research, I realized that there's something called medical marijuana. Some of these drugs, some countries are able to extract, the medical part, the medical,
the active ingredient.
Exactly, that is usable maybe to treat things like cancer or ARVs. But in Africa and Kenya in particular, we're very far to use marijuana as a medical, component because you don't have that technology. So because of that poor information, poor level of awareness, people are just using across all the generation by that mindset that you need dawa. And it become a crisis. And therefore, one of the major parts that we are tackling, because the cases are too much, in fact, we are very much overwhelmed. The community, we normally do outreaches. Within, we do residential and sometimes outpatient. Because just as Pastor said, if we don't, make it, like a gospel, it means that kind of statement, it's a disaster in a way. It's already a disaster. And when we look at the family structures, some of these youngsters, especially the boy child, we are lacking mentors because some of the key figures, the father figures, are already affected. and they lack that audacity to address to their children, especially the boy child. Some of them, they send them to buy these drugs because they're already sick.
Yes.
And sometimes, according to my statistics for the last 3 months, 3 years, sorry, for that matter, many of the clients, 90% are brought by their mothers.
Okay.
Or a very understanding relative,
Yes.
a sibling,
Yes.
who is playing a father figure.
Yeah.
But the father figure, the biological father figure, is absent.
Yeah.
So you look at a situation whereby we have a crisis of parenthood in matters of family structures. When the head is affected, you see,
everything else goes wrong.
It becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
And that's the social component that we try to handle with parents and structured like the church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe I had you mention something there, and I want to jump right in and ask.
Right.
In my assumption, I had thought that most of your clients,
Right.
I'm still avoiding the word patients.
No problem.
Most of your clients come from maybe the primary healthcare setup, like as referrals. But what I'm hearing from you is that they're actually brought in by a willing relative or their social support system. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Bishop is very right. There's a lot of awareness that this is becoming a crisis.
Yeah.
Previously, there was a lot of referrals from mainstream medical facilities.
Yes.
Like, for instance, in Kirinyaga, we have been getting people from Kirahoya referral.
Yes.
There's a ward that handles psychosis and maybe mental health issues and addiction.
Amazing.
And when they realize that this is a case for rehabilitation, they refer.
Yeah.
But we stop now. You realize that about 60% are direct from the community.
Wow.
So people are becoming aware.
Yeah.
And when the client becomes okay,
Yes.
recovers,
Yes.
he infects others positively from the community.
Absolutely.
And the awareness continues.
Yeah.
Because you have those steps of recovery.
Yeah.
And step 12 is like, the way I am, spiritually, medically, and psychologically, I'll influence others positively.
Yeah.
And people are like, this person is okay. He has recovered.
Yeah.
Where did you go? Where did you get this service?
Yeah.
And that awareness is working so well. But we need to work more and more and more, especially on the side of stigma.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Bishop, I want to bring the church community right into this conversation because I know you've been pastoring a church for quite some time, and you've been doing Christian counseling. So my question would be: have you encountered such cases in your practice or in the congregation? Most people would want to believe that we don't have these things in the church, but I believe as we did our campaign last year, we found out that most people, when they face a crisis in their life, about 40% of them will reach out to a pastor first. So members of the clergy were almost like in the front line while dealing with these cases. So have you seen some of these things happen even in the congregation, in the church community?
Thank you. I'll start by saying that church is made up of people.
Yes.
And in his preamble, the doctor said this thing does not spare anybody. I want to really, first of all, amaze you. The last few years, I started working with pastors. And I started something called Naked and Not Ashamed, where ministers, bishops, and pastors and everybody would get into a room and begin to discuss about our own mental issues.
Wow.
And I did a research, and I realized, and this can be verified, that, and I'm sorry to say this, out of 10 pastors, about 6 of them are dealing with mild depression. So if at all the shepherd himself is literally going through that, you expect the same to be replicated. So our congregations are people that are dealing with the issues that we outlined before. So even if they come to church and we are dealing with them spiritually, and that's why I've been really telling the pulpit to reinvent itself. And we've been working with several bodies to make sure that we give pastors basic skills on counseling. Also, we are breaking the silence about mental issues. It's not a curse always, it's not a demon. Sometimes it can be contributed to by other things, where the church now becomes a voice. Because we are the people with, the church is where people come is the first place people come, as you said.
Yes.
So if pastors can be given basic professional skills, sometimes even to be able to notice somebody is going through that. And again, our members trust us so much. They'll come and tell me something they'll never tell even a psychologist. So if I'm able to have some basic skills and a way to structure the help that I want to disseminate, it will be powerful. But number two, we need also to have a partnership with the professionals. That's why we work very well with Gabriel, because he is dealing with that at that level. But church people are going through this, and we are starting to talk about it. And people, for example, in our church, we have a mental wellness week every month where I will talk about basic. And where I need help, I'll call Gabriel, I'll call Frida. We talk about how to manage depression, how to manage stress, etc.
Wow, I feel like I'm sitting right in the future I hoped to see, because in the last year when we did our mental health campaign, I was trying to show the need for us to be aware as a church, because I'm part of the church as well, for us to be aware. Can we pick out that somebody in our midst is going through depression or struggling with an addiction? Are we able to see that they are going through that, and are we able to encourage them to seek help? So one of the things that one of the ministers who was sharing he said that even as we continue creating awareness, we need to make sure that we have contacts of people we can refer the people that need help to. And I'm so elated to hear that you have a mental health awareness week in church. And
it's something we intend to escalate, build our own church. I happen to be privileged to work with other bodies that are really championing mental health. And I would want, might be a pastor or anybody that has a place of influence, to know that if we don't, as Dr. Ali said, combat this issue and face it head on, it will really affect even on the socio-economic aspect of our nation. Most of our young people that are throwing stones, most of them, they need to be in a rehab. So the devil and sometimes the systems that be are using sick people. So the church must come boldly and take up position in community and talk to people about this and let people know it's not a curse always, and somebody can get well. And we can have a healthier nation that will be good for all of us.
I think the devil has been taking advantage of our silence.
And also ignorance about this. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Ali, I want us to talk about the recovery process in a minute. Now that if you spot someone who has a substance use disorder, or just a mental illness, say something like depression, even if it's mild. But let's be more specific about the substance use disorders. For example, if I spot someone struggling with that, how is the treatment process like? Whom should I reach out to first? Should I, when people hear the word rehab, the stigma that is attached to that word alone makes them not seek treatment. So where should I begin?
Thank you. I think the word stigma is too loud in the community. For English, talk about reviewing, repeating, reforming, redeeming. So even spiritually, it's a very nice, phrase that can encourage one to recover from any condition. Now, back to your question. In sociology, we talk about family as the basic unit of the society. And I'm assuming I'm talking to the families, several families. When I look at our, people listen to us, they come from different families. The best model that to agitate, from my experience, we should start from the family. And the family, we're talking about the family structure. If you realize that someone has just changed, even if it is appetite, just poor appetite, poor sleep patterns, accompanied by issues of mood, accompanied by issues of inability even to address basic activities, even like bathing or going to work or absenteeism, we must raise an alarm. Because mentally we talk about what we see. So at a family level, we can even address from family by looking at one another, taking care of one another. And as you had said, from the family, of course, the trickle-down effect of any condition that affects the community from the family is the church. The church, and Bishop can maybe support me on this, is an entry point.
Yes.
And it's like a sieve, a receptor of all aspects affecting our community.
Yes.
And besides the church, we have the school.
Yes.
But why I like the church, using the church, because I've been working with the church community for long, is because our pastors, our bishops, our church leaders and the community, the religious community, our spiritual leaders, they listen to all issues or concerns.
Yes.
And for me, I'm like, if all goes well, through this good partnership with pastor and maybe Bishop Maina, we can have a platform whereby we have a network that is holistic, whereby let's receive all issues concerning mental health.
Yes.
And we keep a database or a network of the referral system, just the way he was indicating, whereby if it is a medical issue that needs psychiatric, we know how to handle it.
Yes.
If it is a psychological issue, we use the right structures to handle the psychological issues.
Yes.
If it is a social issue, which is basically religious, because the religious component is very key, we have our pastors, and they are very much equipped. And they can also give us those guys, those pastors, those religious community people that can handle that void.
Yeah.
Because in assessment, we also realize that lack of a faith, lack of a spiritual component in a human being can lead to a mental disorder.
Wow.
And there's a condition we call delusional disorder.
Yes, yes.
Have you ever found someone telling you that he cannot, sometimes they call themselves God.
Yes.
Because they're lacking an attachment or a link to their spiritual being. Because for us, we don't work as distinct, separate.
Yes.
Just the bishop said.
Yes.
If you realize that this matter is spiritual, we bring them in. And we realize that even God himself gave us three components. The body, the soul, and the spirit.
Yes.
And therefore, if a body is affected, the spirit will not be able to live in.
Yeah.
It will, get disorganized, and of course the soul. And therefore, we need to make sure that we respond, we work together, and we have that kind of strong connection of a network to address this matter holistically.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's something you mentioned when you began biopsychosocial. I think I might want to add biopsychosocial, spiritual approach.
Biopsychosocial.
Because I think this is a first platform, Bishop, that I'm sitting in where science and faith are not in conflict.
They should never be in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we've been myopic mostly from our side.
Yeah.
But one thing that we are beginning to appreciate, the modern pastor is dealing with a very different kind of audience.
Okay.
Number one, they have been educated.
Yes.
In their classroom and lecture hall, they had something about mental health.
Yes.
And they have become, awareness is too much.
Yes.
So if you don't also quickly up your game and become aware on little things about counseling, you're going to be obsolete.
Yeah.
And the church must be relevant to the generation we seek to reach. They have a lot of mental issues.
Yeah.
So pastors are going and learning basic counseling. So now I don't think the conflict will continue. We're going to really narrow the gap.
Yeah.
That's why I love working with Gabriel and others.
Yeah.
So the church will be a stakeholder in this battle. And we will win together if we put the wonderful counselor, Jesus, to be part of this particular whole equation.
Amazing. Wow. So, Bishop, maybe this question will go to you, and if Dr. wants to step in, how do you help a loved one who has a problem with, substance or drug use? You can clearly see that they are addicted to that drug or that substance or that behavior, but they are either unaware that it's a problem or unwilling to change. So where do you start? Do you push them to rehab? First of all, is that even advised? Forcing someone to go to rehab? Where do you begin?
Wow, this is very personal. There comes to a moment after you have tried everything.
Yeah.
I tell people vulnerability is not weakness.
Oh.
Where you come to a point where you've tried everything, spiritual, your family solutions, and you realize that the person in question is still becoming worse and you're almost losing them. I go there with one of my brothers, and I want to tell you it's not an easy thing. When one of your own, mostly in a family where you are so well knit and you care about each other, you see them completely almost dying. Although you are trying to help them, also it affects you. It's tough emotionally. And sometimes it comes also with anger, because sometimes you think you know the potential. And that's why many families, they leave somebody because they think even he's pretending. Why can't you be like everybody else? And that can be part of destroying the person. So to answer your question, I believe there should be somebody there in that family who sometimes also has a minimum. And that's why we keep talking, and I congratulate you for talking about it. Where people hear there's something called mental illness, drug abuse, and Dr. says a mental sickness. So that even if it's in my family, I see a brother or sister going through this, I will not dismiss it as a moral issue first. Then after that, I think it's very important to talk to that person. And first of all, don't judge them. And don't tell them, their motivation should not be for them to be as good as you or as good as somebody else in the family. It is show them it's for their own good. You may not bring the issues of rehab and what have you at the entry point, but as you talk, let them see that they have a lot of potential, and whatever they are going through is not, you are not happy with it, you want them happy. Let motivation be love. And at a particular point, you have to bring somebody else because of the issue of casualness. They may have thought they know you too much. Sometimes they are older than you or younger than you. And after that, like in my case, I remember when I needed this, I had to bring Gabriel in. And because he's a professional, it really amazed me, because what was making me angry, he handled it in a professional way, because that is his training. So it must be a concerted effort. And the issue, as I give to Daktari, should we force somebody to rehab? I asked him that question, and I think he should answer, because he answered me very well, and I was very satisfied.
Wonderful question. There's something in Kenya called Mental Health Act. It stipulates that we have to categorize our patients or clients, for that matter, into two. In mental health world, there's something during screening called mental status examination, whereby you have to score some, particular points of concern of in matters brain functioning as that is making this holistic person. First of all, look at the insight. Does this person know that he has a problem? Yes or no? If it is no, and yet the people around, the environment, is seen for himself, is seen for him or her, then there's a problem. Is the sleep pattern affected? Is even things like diet and of course memory, issues concern cognitive functioning, and of course general orientation. In psychology, there's a psychologist called Erickson who talks about developmental psychology. This guy says that at every particular stage of life, there are needs, there are duties that you must address. And if you don't address, there's something called stagnation. If stagnation strikes, there's a problem. So we ask the members of the family, how is the career of this person? He's 25. What is he doing at this particular stage of life? Is he a student? Is he working somewhere? How is the working pattern? If it is years of marriage, for instance, from 30 to 40, does he have a family? If he scores 0, 0, 0, 0, and yet the person is saying he's okay, what you normally do is to follow the rules of mental health act, and we enlighten the family that we have voluntary and involuntary. Involuntary category are those people who have no insight. And if the community, especially the family, is not careful, is a person who can even maybe cause harm. For instance, harming others or himself, committing suicide, maybe stealing, and the family get fear for him that this guy might even embarrass our dignity, community dignity.
They would have to accept the involuntary admission.
They get admitted through involuntary.
Okay.
We work with the act.
Yes.
The family get enlightened.
Yes.
And the person is told, it's not you.
Yes.
We're just handling your behaviors. We are handling your condition. We don't have a problem with you.
Yeah.
We are just holding you because there's a problem within you that you're not aware of.
Yes.
And therefore, with some time, they get insight, especially through some medication. That particular category, the basic model is medical, just to bring them down first.
Okay.
A level of, insight, some insight that can be enlightened.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. Thank you for that.
Exactly. And sometimes the voluntary ones, they just come by themselves.
They bring themselves.
Yeah, sometimes they just tell the family member,
yes,
please take him to the facility, to the hospital,
yeah.
to a rehab.
Mm.
I have a problem.
Wow.
But the majority who don't have insight, they normally say, in Kiswahili, I've been hearing of it, wachaneni na maisha yangu. Maisha yangu, mimi niko sawa, mimi ni mtu mzima. Mwezi nilazimisha, mimi niko sawa. But people are raising eyebrows from the family. The wife is nowhere to be seen. The children, maybe, they're not going to school, or maybe the person is just living a life that looks like, it's a point a lot of hopeless life.
Yeah.
That's when the family comes in, and we support them.
Yeah.
Even picking them, there's a way of handling them, like the way we normally, I normally appreciate how we have been doing, and we did with Bishop.
Yes.
A very wonderful job of the previous case. Because sometimes you have to use a lot of skills for the person to understand he has a problem.
Just a quick interjection. The more we keep talking and sharing this kind of message, the more people become comfortable with seeking for help. Yes. And we shall have more people going to the rehab or to counseling for that matter without coercion. Let's take away the stigma and demonization of mental health. Let us know that mental faculty was given to God to us by God, and the devil, life circumstances can attack it, and people can get well, and you can function as a healthy member of community and society. So I think I must again congratulate you that you have even taken the initiative.
Thank you, sir. Maybe to go back to what you're talking about, I was reading a book recently. It's called 12 Steps That Mess Up Recovery. I'm forgetting the person who wrote it, but on one of those pages, he quoted a psychiatrist called, I think, Gabriel, who says that addiction is a medical disease with a spiritual cure. Yeah. And I've been thinking, what did he mean by that? Could you maybe help us understand?
I like that guy is like me, is an antagonist, where we don't have to fight with science. Yes. But also we don't also insult spirituality. I think his thinking is coming from, he's humanistic, and most of the humanistic psychologists have a praise for God. Yes. And he might have a Christian background, and I think he leverages strong on the belief that there's a God. Yes. And if God wired us, no matter what we deal with, how physical and scientific it is, still, if you go to the source, we have a spiritual component. Yes. So, mental health, after we've done all the scientific research, would result to where did we come from? Yeah. So I think also we need to apply the spiritual means, like the word of God and prayer, where we involve God into the solution. Yeah. So that's what I think. I've studied that guy, and I like what he's trying to bring out to the world. Yeah. And every modern psychologist should read that book, where we involve God. Yes. Remember Jesus and the maniac. That guy, all the psychologists are trying to fix him. Yes. The family tied him. Jesus came. Yes. And a few minutes, they found him sitting clothed in his right mind. Yeah. So I think, Dr. you need to consider that. And I thank you that you involve sometimes. When I went to his facility, he allows us to pray there. Wow. And as he said, sometimes if a case is completely presenting as spiritual, although we must maintain the professionalism of the institution, he has ways of getting to some of us who also are not going to come and play games there. Yes. So I think we need to do it together. Yeah.
It's funny that you should bring up the story of Jesus and the maniac, because I was recently having a conversation with a friend about these cases, and they were asking me, do you think in those days of Jesus there were mental illnesses, and what would Jesus do, if he found someone with a mental illness or someone struggling with substance use disorders? And I think maybe you can talk to us about the approach you think the church and maybe Jesus would take if he were walking here on earth. And I believe he's walking on earth because he's in us. So the approach and the attitude that we should adopt as a Christian community.
Jesus was a wonderful counselor.
Yeah.
He was a mental health expert.
Yeah.
Many times he would diagnose the issue, it is demonic purely, but many times he dealt with people. For example, anytime Jesus tells you, fear not, he was dealing with a mental issue. Wow. He's dealing with anxiety. Yes. And Jesus, one thing about Jesus, I love Jesus. Yes. Jesus never judged. Wow. He went to the social outcast, brought them near to him. So Jesus will not judge. Number two, Jesus would be willing to walk with somebody from where he met them. Yes. He will not try to tell you what he thinks you should be. Yes. And I think the church, we are his body. Yes. So, and you see me here, and you see him, and you're here. Yeah. So Jesus is still doing it. Look at us. Yeah. This is Jesus at work. Wow. So Jesus is now getting involved into the conversation through us, because he has no other expression other than freedom. So you're looking for Jesus, he's here right now. Wow, so this is what Jesus is doing right now. Yes. Such a brilliant answer. Yeah, Jesus is at work right now in this program. Yes. Wow. Amazing. So we don't have much time to proceed with this conversation, but time, there's a limit to how much we can do in a specific time. But I just want to probably ask Daktari,
right?
Do you think high costs of in terms of treatment is a barrier? Do you think that people don't seek treatment because they can't afford it, or because they are made to think they can't afford it? I was listening to one person sharing their story about recovering from addiction, and they said when they needed rehab, they found out that one was charging 300,000 in 6 months, and they thought, I can't afford rehab. So do you think high cost is a barrier to treatment?
Absolutely no. The reason why I realized that I have to be part of the solution is because of that stigma. Yes. And it is coming two ways. Some people are taking advantage of the poor awareness, or maybe on the treatment model of on issues concerning mental health. Yes. And there's that great assumption that it is very expensive, and it's not. You find that most of the people who are having these facilities, some are not professionals. They have a business.
That's sad.
And maybe very soon, because we have a body called NACADA, through proper policy making and the regulation, we shall have the same way when you go to a clinic, you have a nurse, a counselor, a clinician, but not someone who is just there like a manager. So in most rehabs, you find that this is just a leader, a manager, someone having that kind of arrangement, and maybe employing some medics who might not sometimes, be well equipped in matters mental health, because we have very few psychologists and psychiatrists in Kenya, and therefore some people are just putting up the structure, they call it rehabs, and people are being charged a lot. Well, it's not good to judge, but that's my analysis, because I've been working in Nairobi and particularly in Kiambu and areas that I have to be part of the solution. So my experience in my center is that any case concerning substance use disorders has a solution. The same way Bishop or our spiritual community, where we connect with them, is that they don't discriminate. So long as you have come and you have an issue, they give the service. So what we normally do for our case is to make sure that we become flexible. If the parent or the person is not able, we look at all avenues. And if the issue is about residential, we can make it a little bit cost effective. It becomes outpatient with a strict follow-up. And we make sure that the person is assessed by the right persons, from reception to admission and treatment.
Yes.
So it is very much manageable.
Mm-hmm.
It is cost effective.
Mm-hmm.
And for a case, we are helping the government through the health pillar, people to access basic health. And mental should be a primary health care, not a secondary.
Yeah.
Because it is manageable.
Yes.
And it is treatable.
Okay.
Wow.
Yes.
So nobody should love treatment because they think they can't afford it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Wow. Thank you. Maybe because you're finishing, I want you to let us know if somebody is within Kirinyaga County.
Right.
Where would they find you, or if they want to seek help or bring a loved one or contact you, how do they find you? How do they reach out?
Right.
Yeah.
On 24 hours, we are very much accessible.
Okay.
Through the phone, you can call 0720. On your screen, you can see the number 0720 108 403 or 0748 880 968. We are located in Kagio, Mwea West, Kagio, Kinyaga Road.
Yes.
When you just arrive at Kagio, just make a call. Sometimes we also respond.
Yeah.
Within Kirinyaga, we have been responding, and we call it home visits. Because sometimes some of these drugs might affect a client or a patient, and it becomes difficult. We have a way of handling some of these patients or clients from home to the facility.
Yes.
Or sometimes at home based.
Yes.
So we are very flexible, effective, and very professional.
Yeah.
But above all, just the way Pastor said, and you, we don't put God aside. We use that model called 12 steps of recovery.
Yes.
Because we believe we treat.
Yes.
We treat. How is the phrase?
We treat God heals.
We treat God heals.
Yes.
And that's why we use also that model of the 12 steps. Whereby after admitting I have a problem, that admission is showing that there's a power.
Yes.
And of course, that is a spiritual power.
Yes.
Every human being is a spiritual being.
Yes.
And therefore, we treat the body, but that spirit help the person, accept that I have a problem. And every problem which is beyond me, there's a power.
Yes.
And that power is, of course, the Most High. And every person has a God.
Yes.
And our God is mighty.
Yeah.
And our model, because we are Christians, we believe we treat, God heals.
God heals.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for the amazing work you're doing. I feel inspired. Keep up these talks because I believe people will reach out and come for help.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Bishop, I want to end the show with you, and I want to read you a scripture. Because it's one that I think we need to understand. So the scripture is in Proverbs 31. Maybe I'll read from verse 1. It says, the words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, your ways to those of the stray kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to take strong drink, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. Verse 6 says, give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. Maybe help us understand, because I think verse 6, people just pick that verse and, it's like people want to use that verse to say that God has allowed people to take alcohol.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. You're now making the theologian in me to wake up. This verse has been really abused. We are talking about drug abuse.
Sure.
This has been really abused because of lack of knowledge. Just like any other profession, if you are a preacher of the Bible and you're serious, you need to get basic tools of how to interpret Bible. For example, you said some people go only to verse 6. It's a scene in the pulpit called eisegesis, where you force God to say through his word, like I tell people, either raping God or pointing a gun, for God to say what you want to say. So what we do when you have such a verse that looks a little bit controversial, you apply the laws of biblical hermeneutics. And one of them is something called context. And the one I want to use here. You cannot start with verse 6. You start with verse 1. and follow. And if you are very clear, this is a mother advising her son who is a king. And she gets desperate and tells him the pombe or the drug, the wine is for people who are perishing. She becomes almost sarcastic. So it's not a license to take beer. She is trying to discourage and says, now if you have to take it, you are a king, you are a prince. This is not for you. So this is, in fact, a deterrent. It's not an encouragement.
Wow. Wow. I think it's good that you clarified that.
Yeah, it's a deterrent. Don't do it. It's not for you. It's for people who are perishing. I hope also now in the modern, because the revelation is dynamic, so we are saying those who are perishing also there's help for you. But this woman left it at that. It should be given to the ones who are perishing. So kings, you are a king, you're born a king, you are a prince. God does not want you to go to this. Thank you.
I would like you to give us a parting shot, and even from Daktari, and then maybe as you conclude, you'll say a word of prayer. So I think it's best to begin with him, and then you'll come and on board and pray.
Our viewers, thank you for listening. And I would like to say that in psychology, we believe the following. According to someone called Carl Rogers, that given the right resources, the right environment, and having that awareness of ourselves, and of course, God that created us, we're able to sort out problems. Addiction is a condition that is, environmental. No one was born an addict. And therefore, God brought some problems so that we can have creativity to have solutions. So there's no problem without a solution. So I'm speaking to that person who believes that there's no way out. And as a matter of fact, any SUD with the proper assessment, with the proper support, is treatable, preventable, and it's a process. So kindly make advantage of people like us, men of God like Bishop. Go to them, raise your concern, take your numbers. We shall come back to you, and we shall make sure that we handle issues, and we shall support you. The same way when someone has malaria, you go to the hospital. Headaches, you go even to the pharmacy and buy medications. Let us accept addiction as any other condition, as another disease, because if we keep quiet, it will consume us. It will finish us. Thank you very much.
The families that have people with addictions. Also, we pray for the nation of Kenya and other aspects of our society life. The Church of Jesus Christ to take her praise. And also, Father God, the power to break this stigma where people are afraid to reach out for help. Increase the desire for people to go for counseling so that we can save our